Ohayou gozaimasu. I like the way this orchestra stands up every time we say this to each other, so this is fantastic. I have to say that part of the choices of the programs for next season are really based on continuing to develop as an orchestra. So obviously the freedom to improvise in performance, that can be done with any repertoire. But I was also looking to find opportunities to continue to work really on two things. First of which is sonority and line, a cantabile line. Now, obviously, the sonority, I can work on the individual voice, the individual player, the attack of the sound, and the resonance of the sound. I can also, of course, work in sonority on the balance between all these instruments. And this I did last week. And I remember saying to them, look, it's you play in a very traditionally hierarchical way. The first voice, the first trumpet, the first clarinet, the first oboe plays loudest, the second one plays not quite so loud, and the third voice plays not quite so loud again. And I said to them, I want this completely the other way around. We need to have the third, the lower voice, loudest, the second slightly less, and the melody, which we all hear anyway, as the quietest one on top. Well, I also said to the strings, it's clear, isn't it, the people around me, the first desks, the leaders, they lead, but it's all the back desks that actually make the sound. So even just talking briefly about that kind of how we deal with sonority, actually suddenly they completely changed the way they were playing, which is quite astounding for me. And the second thing I was looking for in this season's, coming season's programs is really virtuosity, to find sonorities, of course, appropriate to each epoch, to each piece. And not only that, but to be able to change them, switch from them from one program to the next, and indeed from one piece to the next piece within the same program. So let's just briefly look at them. We have the first program we have in Metamorphosen and Bruckner 7. So they're both very similar in the sense they're both harmonically advanced and melodically rich and dense. At least when you, as an audience, you come out, you see only 23 strings on stage. It looks small, and you're confronted with a sonority of strings. And after the break, then you move from this chamber music formation to a much, much bigger formation of Bruckner, where obviously not only have you got a much bigger architectural span, but you also have a very large part to be played by the brass section. So this idea of moving from one dimension at the beginning of a concert program to a much bigger dimension at the end is something I enjoy. I suppose with Hosokawa, Ravel and Image, I was trying to find some combination where we use orchestral sound as a sort of liquid fluidity, the darkness and the mystery of the sea and the dark sonorities of the left hand, and then the sunlight of Iberia. And of course, technically the challenge to create this fluidity in the sound. And when we come to the symphonies of wind instruments, Bartók Piano Concerto No. 1 and Beethoven 5, I mean, here we have, again, the play, great beauty of sonority, but much, much more austere sound world. That then, the rhythmical drive of well, actually both pieces, then being confronted with the piece we know very well, Beethoven's Fifth, again, with the same amount of rhythmical drive. Apparently, some of you still think of me as a conductor of contemporary music. And a surprise that I choose to play Beethoven 5. Well, I have to say to you, there was a time in my life where, yes, I did explore contemporary music a lot and discovered many beautiful pieces. But what actually interests me now is the challenge to, let's say, visualize the face of Beethoven, and we all know what Beethoven's face looked like, and to imagine this white piece of paper in front of him, and this sort of kind of state of red-hot creative passion that he was in, and to give a performance of Beethoven 5 that is worthy of that inspiration, and not just simply another repeat of a piece we know very well. Mahler 3, I don't really need to say very much, except it's a whole universe in one piece. only that this, in my experience of Mahler 3, virtually everything you can read about this piece, and of course that includes things that Mahler himself said, are not the whole truth. And the last two programs, I mean, I hope you'll enjoy these two. They are very close to my heart about exactly what fun there is to be made in the huge, great treasure of music that we have behind us, the beginning of the 21st century. I mean, this Ligeti metronome piece, I've performed this 2 or 3 times. I have to say, I remember one concertmeister it was in Bamberg actually, saying to me that the moment that when that last metronome stops ticking, the silence that happens, especially in a wonderful hall like we have here, you want to kill this metronome because you get bored with them, and then you want to save this metronome because it's like a human life, and when it finally ticks and stops, the last one, I think that's an extremely magic moment, talking a lot about changes between life and death. And then to have this Bach, in the Stokowski, emphasize the sort of death element, the transitional element of this metronome piece. But then we go straight into burlesque without a break. And what is that? That's much more sort of crazy world, taking us back towards life. And I think then with the Shostakovich 15, last symphony of Shostakovich, what that's trying to say, and a whole life in one symphony, and that it ends with this very percussion, the very sort of ticking of life ticking away, that then makes this arch for me from the beginning to the end of this concert program. Morten Feldman's music, which is very slow and very, it gives you plenty of time to listen to the combination of just one beautiful sound after the next, and what that means in terms of listening to modern music without tonality, I think is extremely beautiful music, and it teaches us how to listen to more complicated contemporary music. So to have that then again, small chamber music piece in a symphonic program. It's quite daring, and I like it very, very much. And then to have Bartók and Dvorak, the two Eastern European music, so I'm very happy with this season. I think there's great joy present in this combination. There's life and death in all sorts of forms, and I think it basically combines the type of musical journey that makes me glad to be, a performing musician at the beginning of the 21st century. So.